It's a Tuesday, another Tuesday, of course, and it's about to get terrific on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakwa, and I can assure you of this, you've made the right choice by joining us right here. Now, coming up today, a whole pot of interesting issues that we're going to be bringing your way. Let's start with our news review, where we host our regular, on Tuesdays, Oliver Barker-Vomawo. You know him. He doesn't, take any prisoners. He's going to be sharing his thoughts on a number of matters with us this morning. Look forward to that one. But let's talk about, Parliament getting back into session and the E-levy. It's back, but how is it going to pan out? How is it going to fare in Parliament? There has been so much discourse on the E-levy, and now we're practically scratching our heads and wondering what the next step would be. Would the majority side or the majority caucus be able to muster or gather the numbers ahead of the vote on the E-levy, or deliberations, I should say? And generally, how do Ghanaians feel about not just the E-levy, but this hung parliament, which Professor Jampo says, in terms of the majority leader's posturing, doesn't support collaboration, working hand in glove? We'll be bringing you all the Speaker's absence and its effect on parliamentary business. Last Friday, had the majority caucus mustered the numbers, they would have been able to conclude on this matter. It didn't turn out. Well, we get into all of those deliberations with our guests, Alhassan Suini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, and Dr. Stephen Amwa, Member of Parliament for Inshiayo. So we also have, joining the conversation from Odikro, Professor Kwabena Safo Kantanka, a Senior Research Fellow with Odikro. And how about you? Yes, we're stepping out, and it's simple. We'd like to find out, do you follow parliamentary proceedings? Yeah, the streets of Accra, in a location near you, to pick your views. All of that plus sports and more coming your way on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakwa. Do stay. Up next, we have the news.
In the balance, as a strike by university teachers enters day 22. By convention, public universities are to shut down after 21 days of no academic work. At the University of Ghana, students are packing out. Here's Manuel Quaranting's reports.
It's the fourth week of that impasse between UTAG members and the government of Ghana. The lecturers are demanding better conditions of service. But government, on the other hand, says it is engaging. While this engagement continues, it's 4 weeks already with no academic activity on the various university campuses. The last time this happened was in 1995, when the various public universities in Ghana were shut down for close to a year. The same situation is staring us in the face again, begging to repeat itself. Well, I've come to the University of Ghana to speak to some students who are contemplating and considering moving out of campus altogether up until when government settles the issues with UTAG. To my left are Ajubi strike. We're in the fourth week. What have you been doing?
As you know, we come to school for academic activities, but this is the situation where no academic activities going on at all. One could say, okay, you are in school with friends who have group studies, but then we don't have course outlines. We don't have reading materials even. So what do we do? Most of my friends have gone home. Most of my friends are already at home. Most of my friends even come to school at all because they were like, what am I coming to do? And I agree with them. So me, for instance, if by the end of this week, nothing happens, I'm sure I'll just move home.
Well, let me bring in Ajubi into the conversation. Ajubi, just get a bit closer. Talk to me about what your own situation has been.
Since we came to school, it's only one lecturer, I think, who has sent us his course outline. The other courses have not sent us anything. Program a year abroad and then come back. Then maybe by the time I return to school, maybe things will be back on track, academic-wise. Because this is clearly a waste of time. We can't pay huge amounts of fees and hostel fees and you don't teach us. You just leave because of your condition. I understand them as teachers that, okay, you need a better pay because of your job. But the government should also think about us students, because right now we've paid and we are ready to learn, but nothing is happening.
So who are you blaming? I hear you say, well, you agree that
to their rights, to demand their pay, because you can't work and they are not giving you the right amount of money you need. So the government should listen to their cry and attend to them, because I think it's the best thing they should be doing right now.
Do you agree with that assertion that government should listen to UTAG, regardless of the fact that UTAG's persistent, absence from classes is going to affect you?
I disagree, because if government does not respond to UTAG the way they want it, and they are able to come to an agreement and they say that, okay, come in later after a month, we'll get back to you. And what if they don't? And it will continue again and continue again. Next year, we'll still be seeing this. So they should just solve it now so that we, in the long term...
Leaving campus, are you?
For me, yes. My dad said I should get back home by Friday. If I don't get anything from the lectures, probably I might get back because sending money and all, my dad is saying that I'm spending too much, looking at what he's seen in the news and all of that, yes.
And this situation is pretty much the same for a lot of your other colleagues. Let me bring in Abna into the conversation. Abna, people are, going home. Their parents, giving them pressure to come back home. Are your parents asking you to come back home?
Same pressure everywhere, especially regarding the finance involved, because parents made an agreement with their wards that after every 2 weeks or after every month, I am going to send you this amount of money. But this is the case where you've been in school for about 3 weeks, you call home to ask for money and they tell you, what have you used the money for? After all, you're not there. Because I was on campus simply because most of my colleagues who I'm in the same research group with for our final year proposal are on campus, and then we all agree that we could work on our final year projects. But unfortunately for us, when we send our lecturer, messages with regards to our research, there's no response. And the message is loud and clear that we are on strike. And so I can't respond to your questions on your research as well. So I think the best decision at the moment, especially when parents have also decided not to give their wards money, is to go home.
In the Central Region, correspondent Richard Kojako reports some students have formed study groups to make up for lost time.
Here on the campus of the University of Cape Coast, the campus is completely deserted. Most of the students have left and they are home now. Others are contemplating leaving because fear that if they do not go home, they might completely spend every money that was given to them by their parent. For the university management, what they have done is to open the university's main library very early. The departmental library and the hall libraries have also been opened. Some of the students have been utilizing this opportunity. They've been going there to read. Others are also exploring the option of forming groups. So others have actually formed groups, and they have sought the assistance of some of their seniors to assist them in going through some of the materials they will be using during this semester. For the freshmen and women on campus, their wish was that they would have tasted lecturing by now, because they have been saddled, or they have been accustomed to teaching in the senior high schools.
Yeah, so that's what I can say.
Campus is deserted. A lot of your guys are going home. Yes. Some have not even come at all. Yes. I mean, what are you contemplating doing?
Currently, we are forming a group studies. Yeah, we biomedical science, we have a group study section in the group. So every day out, we try to meet 2 hours or 3 hours. We start maybe the courses that we are studying, so that we took some slide from our seniors. Then they will teach us small, showing 1 or 2 things, so that you have to do before the lecturer comes and come and teach us. Yeah, so we're hoping that you catch up with some small things, so that the lectures come. Everything flow.
As I'm speaking to you, day in, day out, we are spending, and you came with a budget, you're actually affecting us. So with time, if the strike is not coming to an end, we'll surely go home. So we are appealing to government that they should listen to their concern and attend to them, so that they will come and continue with us.
The plea of the student here is that government should immediately, as a matter of necessity, sit down with the university lecturers and then talk about their issues, so that they would return to the classroom. From the University of Cape Coast campus, my name is Richard Kwejenyakon for Joy News.
Government says it is progressively building an educational system to leapfrog the inequality in the sector, which has created the unintended consequences of low productivity in schools. Handing over 150 vehicles, including 100 buses and 50 pickups, to taken by the administration to improve enrollment and increase access to quality education.
Well working and maintained throughout their life. Amen.
In a similar exercise in 2021, the Vice President handed over pickup trucks, buses, and motorbikes to senior high schools and circuit supervisors in a bid to promote efficiency in the educational sector. Dr. Baumia, at the handing over ceremony on Monday, encouraged the head teachers to maintain the vehicles with the ultimate goal of training students who will actively participate in the transformation of the country.
It is well documented that the availability of good transportation, an efficient transportation system in our schools increases student enrollment and encourages many students to stay in school. Indeed, it has been said that a dependable transportation system in schools improves the safety of students and makes teachers and students more productive. Also, an efficient transportation system in schools is key to hastening the economic transformation and the development of our country as envisioned by
sector.
If your education system does not demonstrate quality, access, and relevance, it cannot change your fortunes. Other nations in the 21st century has transformed their fortunes because they transformed their education system. And this is the demonstration of the transformation. When the president said that in order to ensure that teaching and learning takes place very well in senior high schools, we should provide them means of transportation. It has been fulfilled. And let us thank
headmistresses of the various schools.
Member of Parliament for Mfansiman Ophelia Mensah Hayford has described as unfortunate how some parents force programs and courses on their children without considering their interests and talents. According to her, the practice is not only stifling the growth and development of their children alone, but affecting the development of the country's human resource base, as well as government's efforts to develop the skills and talents of children through its TVET programs. She's been speaking at the inauguration of an apprenticeship program at Salt Pond in the Central Region, from where Richard Kojanyako reports.
MP at the inauguration of the Salpon Apprenticeship Skills spearheaded by the Ernest Ejiu Foundation entreated parents not to force courses and programs against the will of their children. She indicated that not everyone was born to attain higher academic standing in society, but the interest and the passion of children in the acquisition of skills must be considered for the development of the individual and the building if such practices continue.
I cannot say we all are destined to be professors and educationists. In fact, we need the seamstress or the designer to design something good for us to look good. And that is why the government is introducing the TVET. I think some years back, we had all these in our schools. I know our skills. But here is the case, as we developed, we abandoned it and then took the culture of the Western. We all want to go to the universities, no. But government sat and then realized that no, we are losing our skills. And so he's introducing the TVET. And so I'll tell parents that we shouldn't force our children to be the doctors and to go and then study maths and the engineers and whatever. But some imbibed in them.
A member of the Council of State, Professor Atue Suman, entreated indigents of Salpon to turn their attention home to help develop and build the historic town of Salpon instead of sitting along the fringes and lamenting.
No, the government has a role to play in making sure that it creates the environment for development. But the inhabitants themselves and the leaders and people who have been privileged to be in certain positions also have responsibility to make sure that social come home. Most of what we see is that they live outside. We only see them when they are dead and they bring their bodies here.
Chief Executive Officer of the Ernest Ejiu Foundation, Ernest de Graft Ejiu, appealed to the President to consider moving the National Founders Day celebration to Salpon, as the place holds a very important key in Ghana's political history.
We are calling on His Excellency the President, National Founders Day from Accra to Saltpond. I believe these together will help with the local economy of Saltpond. It could be that ours is tourism. You won't do a factory here, but do the celebration. Let the national celebration be here, so then that the people will feel motivated, and hotels will come in. Food chains will set up.
Talented but needy residents of Salpon were set up for training under the apprenticeship and the skill acquisition scheme of the foundation. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejonya-Akon, Cape Coast.
Chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Josephine Nkrumah, fears there could be political instability, government's inability to address the root cause, corruption. Speaking at a roundtable discussion on the theme Rethinking Ghana's Anti-Corruption Strategies, a decade trend analysis of the Corruption Perception Index in Ghana, the NCCE boss charged government to walk the talk in its quest to deal with the canker.
If the fundamental law is to the drawing board, and we don't have to go to the drawing board and say, hey, this thing's such a long process. We have to do it now. And I just want to remind all of us about what is going on in the sub-region. We've seen a recurrence of coups in West Africa, and we must not sit and think that it could not happen in Ghana. All the countries we've seen who are suffering coup d'etats. You know, the frightening thing about it is that the coup leaders are being, what then is democracy? For the people, by the people, of the people. So if a coup leader comes and he's cheered on, is it democracy? Is it democratic? Some will say yes. Some will say maybe because you came by the means of some, perceived violence, it's not democracy. But I want that to cause us to think that there is a direct relationship between corruption, its effect on our democracy, and the imminent danger that lies ahead for us. And if we are sensitive enough and our ears are on the ground to hear what goes on in the sub-region, then, ladies and gentlemen,
in our last story, the overlord of the Dagbon, Yana Abukari, has commiserated with victims of last Saturday's fire at Abuabo Market in Tamale. He sent a delegation headed by the Nantwana to ascertain the cause of the fire and meet with various stakeholders on how to prevent such occurrences in the future. Northern Regional Correspondent Martina Bogri has the rest of the story.
The fire service close to 3 hours to bring the fire under control. The dawn fire on Saturday destroyed several properties, including grains in the market. The chiefs were on a tour to inspect the extent of the traders' Dagbon, but the country as a whole. He said any reduction in the wealth of the people in the area is a reduction that affects the region.
This loss is a loss for Dagbon, loss of northern region, and loss of the country as a whole, as his grandfather said. Any reduction in the wealth of the people of Dagbon is a reduction of the wealth of people in Ghana. And so he's very, very much concerned and asked us to come and see the extent of the damage. We can see what we can do to actually ameliorate the pain and then the loss of those people involved, and also to forestall future occurrences of this fire outbreak, especially the wiring of the stores, and then also leaving gap for, in case such a thing happens, where the fire service can actually pass through, and also the water hydrants, to have them all open up, or else they to come and provide water for the fire service to do continuous work. So I think in a situation like this, it's not only for the fire service, so everybody, especially those who are supposed to provide the water for them to extinguish the fire. So he's appealing to government, appealing to all concerned to do all that we can actually to eliminate the pain of these people, and then also to prevent future occurrences of this fire outbreak.
The mayor of Tamale, Sule Salifu, who responded to the delegation, he said the assembly has taken steps to address some of the concerns raised by the traders.
When we got here this morning, we realized that there was no free flow of the fire service into the market. I've instructed the task force to take all the containers on the main stretch today. By 5 o'clock, I'll be here to inspect the place again to ensure that we don't know what will happen tomorrow. Maybe what we are witnessing today is a joke. What may happen tomorrow will be more than what we are seeing. So we want to take this step quickly to ensure that there's free flow. Again, we have inspected the water hydrants as chiefs talked about, and one of it is not working.
And that's it for the AM News. I am Apito CBD. The AM show continues.
Well, here we are. Thank you for staying with us on this first day of this new month. We've hit February, and it is a beautiful day, isn't it? Well, it comes with a lot, and we'll be getting into some of the Baka Vomawo joining the conversation. He is going to be sharing his thoughts on myriad matters with us this morning. Oliver, good morning. I'm saying good morning as though you were here with us, but good morning all the same.
Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well.
I'm well. Hope you are too.
No complaints whatsoever. Hey, it's the month of improvement, so it's a lot of reinvigorated spirits that's come up in the month of February. So we're good.
Right. We thank God for the gift of life. Right before we get into the papers, I took a screenshot of a post you put up. It has to do with our youth and Ghana being the best place in the world, and yet we seem to be in the quandary that we find ourselves. My phone is taking pretty long because of just how much data is on it, or information. All right, so here we go. So your post says, Ghana is the best place in the world. I don't understand why 9 out of every 10 young people want to move abroad. So strange. And the reactions on this post, amazing. What made you put up this post, and what made you put it up, and what do you really think in that regard?
The strange reality we live in.
Right.
I'm trying to tease conscience in a bit. Like, for instance, there's another one where I posted where I was talking about Ghanaians in the UK. You never find Ghanaians in the UK trying to raise funds on Facebook to send someone to the hospital. Our situation is not normal, like wake up. So that's the kind of post I generally post to tease out people's attention to the things we've normalized, and we don't really understand why we have normalized them. And perhaps it pushes them to reflect a bit more on our situation. Now, there's no country in the world where 90% of young working adults, or adults who should originally normally be working in that age group, want to just up and leave the country. You know, like there's a certain adventure to see the world, but not to move abroad. Like countries, and a lot more countries, a lot of people just want to travel and have the opportunity. And that's why a lot of the times after high school, people will take a gap year, or in the first year of college, they'll try to travel abroad a bit and then come back and settle and find a good job. But it's not our reality. And it's a question that we need to ask why. That after so long of independence, of a land we fought for, and that we continue to say to ourselves that we must fight for, a lot of us just want to check out and find opportunities abroad. It's both a loss of hope in the Ghana project.
The Ghana project?
I have rediscovered my faith in the Ghana project. There were times past where I had lost hope, you know, and now it's a different. I think that to lose hope is to allow others to win. Right. Because I believe that when you have countries, even when you see countries in civil war, like what happened in Liberia, there were still people who were looking to be leaders of broken countries. And it doesn't matter how much Ghana gets broken, beaten. There are certain people whose only interest would be to occupy the public space and enrich themselves, no matter whatever is left in that broken system. So if we lose hope, we only encourage those who have nothing, a luxury we can afford. I think that's kind of where I've come back, run around and running away from a destiny. And I think I've been caught and pulled back into it. So there's no hope lost here.
No hope lost. Let's get into some other stories right before we delve into the newspapers. And of course, we look at the stories from different angles. Now, there's a story on myjoyonline.com, and you being in the field you are, I felt you might be interested. It's a story talking about the J.B. Dankwa Edu case, the member of parliament who sadly, many years ago, lost his life. Now, guess what? A pathologist who conducted the autopsy on the murdered Ibwakwa North member of parliament from back then has blamed the theft of his personal computer. It's Eduse, who told the court just yesterday that despite examining the body in 2016, the report submitted to the court was dated February 2018, and it goes on and on. He talks about a conference in Germany where he said thieves broke into his house and stole everything, including this computer. I have a few questions. The first one How does this happen in the jurisdiction where you find yourself? Do things like this happen? I mean, how much of a rarity is that? And secondly, with some...
So this case is nothing but all strange, right? Like there's so much angles to it. Like every time there's always a new fact, there's a new discovery, there's allegations of high-level involvement in the case. And there's nothing normal about the fact that persons who are working and investigating the case get their house burgled. It's surprising that this is the first time we're hearing about it, because there's a deep connection one can draw between the murder itself and this. And I suppose a lot of people's mind is going haywire. But I want to kind of come back to the basics. At the time the incident happened, did he around this or what's happened in court, which has been reported, clarifies the point as to whether or not a formal police complaint was made at the time. At which point, because from all indications, it seemed like a staged burglary where other things were taken as well, including his personal devices. At which point did he make the connection that perhaps people might be after the pathologist's report that was on his personal device? So there's still a lot which is quite unclear about the system, and this reflects it. If a person of a high profile, as a member of parliament, can die in such mysterious circumstances, and there's dilly-dallying and there's unclear commitment to bringing perpetrators to book, it sends worrying signals down to us, the nobodies, right? Like us in the lower segments of society who have been traditionally ignored, as to whether or not the same sense of urgency and professionalism will be attended to the case. Regarding the use of his personal device, I don't want to fault him on that. I think that generally we forget that in so many public institutions and office spaces, persons are not provided with devices and office devices for them to work with, and that a lot more people have recourse to their own devices. It happens in the public sector, it happens in the private sector. And it's not particularly strange to me that he would be working on his private device. But I think the bigger questions as to whether or not the police were involved and what investigations were carried out at the time when the incident happened, and what connections were drawn in that connection.
Right. And maybe the final issue I'll run by you before we start digging into the papers. I'd like us to look at this entire Burkinabe situation. Their team is doing wonders in the AFCON 2021, but we can't say same for their country in terms of political stability. And here we are again, another president bites the dust, so to speak. The system has caught up with him, Roch Kabore in this instance. And we've had ECOWAS respond, as usual. And this time, it's sanctions again. And I don't know whether this is becoming, because we heard the ECOWAS chairperson say that we must set an example and we must do all of that. But you look at the example that has been set, the trajectory, and it's not worked. It's not done much in Guinea. It's not done much in Mali. I think it was Guinea that recently ousted, I could be mistaken, either one of Guinea or Mali that ousted the French representative.
Mali.
The French representative in the country. And now we have Burkina Faso. What is your take on this entire matter? Some have said, look, we should expect more coups in the coming year, for example. What is your take, and why are we frequently having these putches in our part of the world?
3 points. The first one is I always smile when people draw incidences and connections between the AFCON and incidences like this. I saw Kwesi Enin talk about how in the lead up before the 31st December coup in Ghana, the Liman administration had decided not to participate in the AFCON that was happening in Libya. And then Jerry Rawlings does the coup, and then Ghanaians jubilate at the fact that they were going to go back to AFCON. I think it's strange to see that Burkina Faso do so well, where there's so much noise around what the political situation back in Burkina Faso is in that regard. The second thing I want to talk about is, first of all, the question of coup itself. And somebody had to reorient my mind that the real coup that happens or is happening in West Africa isn't, this peaceful transitions where you see military take over the reins of government, but the real coup is the fact that certain people have taken over the public purse, over the public space, and using it to enrich themselves at the detriment of the vast majority of people. That is the real coup that undermines the social contract that people have with their leaders and leadership. And a lot of times we focused on, small incidents like this That's all you replace who is in a leadership position without reflecting on the injustice, which sometimes is generational, goes over decades, that continues systemic poverty and recycles this. That is the real coup that eats at the soul of young nations. And I think that situation is very prevalent in the entirety of the sub-region, and we live it every day. We live it when we see, some of the incidences and the kind of debt levels that we are seeing in Ghana, where we cannot even pinpoint to what benefit and what new benefits have been brought into the lives of Ghanaians. Those are coups that we have learned to live with and normalize. ECOWAS approach, which is the final point on sanctions. I think that one of the, all over the world, there's a general consensus that sanctions do not work. And if you followed a bit of my writing on this, when the sanctions on Mali came in the first time, I was glad and I feted the Guineans for saying that they were not going to uphold the sanctions. First of all, Mali is a landlocked country that depends on its neighbors that use the ports. The same situation is what Burkina Faso finds itself as, a landlocked country that is very dependent on countries like Ghana to be able to get stuff to them. The real people that suffer are citizens. They are denied access to basic amenities, and not the leadership who have a different, an obstinate or believe that things have to be reformed in a particular way. So they do not have the intended effects. In fact, worse, they impoverish the people. So it's not surprising to me that the sanctions have not worked and that people are not even minding them. When you saw the situation in Mali, telling enough in the region. So I do hope that ECOWAS has a rethink of strategy and is much more attentive to the needs or the everyday normalized coup that happens in people's lives that they do not seem to pay attention to. As far as Ghana is concerned, I think that a lot of people are drawing similarities with Ghana. I do not think that a coup is imminent in Ghana at all. In fact, I think that the people who we are expecting to do the coup, which is the military, are in bed with the political class, that they have been so well sorted out that they do not share the same economic anxieties that we do. And so I do not think that military intervention is likely. A lot of the times when the military do this, they have to also be feeling the pinch. And in our case, they are not. So that's kind of my take on that.
Are getting the perks of the system here, that makes it very unlikely to happen. That's an interesting thought. But let's move this conversation forward. Let's dig into the Daily Graphic newspaper. UTAG ready to negotiate. I don't know whether that warms the cockles of your heart, Oliver, but the story is on page 16, and it says, the University Teachers Association of Ghana has said it is ready to negotiate, but the posturing of the employer is not welcoming. The president theatres, there were no concrete milestones on the table towards meeting their demands. And we're fast approaching day number 21, or meltdown day, or D-Day. We've heard from the students. Yesterday I was interacting with the coordinator, I think, for the University Students Association of Ghana. Was it the National Union of Ghana Students? All of them pointing to the fact. In fact, he mentioned live on the show that I put the question to him about where he would lay the blame, whether he felt lecturers were being insensitive. And he said, no, it is the employer that is being insensitive. It is the employer that is getting us into this situation, and they must remedy it. They've been unfair to the lecturers. Do you feel there's enough will to get this thing done? Because mind you, Oliver, students are home even when the 21-day limit hasn't hit. What do you make of it, and what would you like to see?
Well, one, I think UTAG has always been open for business in terms of negotiating and moving the situation forward and having clarity. They have done so in the many times where they have kind of, just rescinded the decision and given government time to negotiate, which is something they did in this case as well. If I think that nothing is moving, is from the end of a government that is legitimately cash-strapped. When I say cash-strapped, I mean in terms of a bulk of our resources is servicing a particular class that a lot of us are not getting access to. Now they are struggling to be able to find sources of funding. They have borrowed the country to their neck. If there are savings to be made, it has to be genuine cuts from the political class for them to cut down on the perks and expenditure to be able to allow people within UTAG to also get a fair shake of the national cake. Regarding students, I am apprehensive. I mean, I hear what you said about the National Union of Ghana Students, and I'm surprised to see the silence of students in general. There's a point where the student unions, and I use unions to kind of evoke sort of a trade union sentiment here, where we're very vocal, we'll take to the street, and we're more protective of not only students' interest, but teachers' interest. In this case, you have both. You have students who are wasting away at home, who are unclear as to what the academic calendar looks like, and with all what COVID had done to, academic administration, this has also come to add to the pile of confusion. I was expecting a much more robust, mobilizing, a much more confrontational approach from student leadership in bringing their people to bear, in demonstrating, in petition, how much they're giving UTAG, but also what it means for the uncertain futures of thousands of Ghanaian students. Unfortunately, when you look at the COVID fund administration, 40,000 of that was given to the National Union of Ghana Students for handover and leadership training. Unsurprising to me that they issued a statement in support of E-levy. So perhaps it's a bit of capture there. They might do, statements like the one the guy made to you, but nothing more. Doesn't show a commitment to mobilizing and really bringing their voice as key participants in the conversation.
So
it's
they themselves,
and the employer.
They have themselves not lived up to expectation, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the E-levy, your favorite subject, the E-levy. I know I'd get you smiling there. Page 17 of the Daily Graphic, E-levy still high on the agenda, and government is going to push for this even as we go back to the August House today. Tied to that, we have stories like on My Joy Online, Dr. Ali Nachia, the tax lawyer, an expert, talking about the fact that we risk increased youth unemployment, money laundering if E-levy is passed in its current form. And yesterday we had quite a discourse. Now, just to summarize for you, you would notice that in our sub-region, the countries like Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, and those who are implementing it at a little above 1% are doing so on the service fee or the service charge, which is the 1% we're already paying. So they are taking a percentage of what the telcos pay. Those who are charging something different from the service fee are implementing anything between 0.2 and 0.5%. Here we are in Ghana, where you might end up paying 1% both ways, which is 2% if you want the person receiving the money not to have any deductions, and then add a 1.5% as per the revised E-levy figure. What do you make of it?
I'm grateful for Dr. Ali Nachia's voice in this, but it's also reflective of the fact that all these things would have come up, and brains like this would have helped fine-tune the conversations around the levy. Like, we shouldn't now be having this conversation ex post facto, right? Like, it has to precede before we even get into that conversation. I remember the current vice president, who has been involved in economic policy making in this country for a while, and is also an integral part of this government's economic management team, talking about the former administration and saying that, there was a proposed tax on savings, and saying that to even think about it, the fact that you even thought about it is reflective of some deficiency in even how to govern the country. And it's so weird to see kind of the same words, one could easily use the same words with regard to this tax and how we are proceeding on it. So if there's anything I have, is the failure of consultation and failure of an open and honest, credible conversation that moves us from the echo chamber that partisan folks tend to have into a more societal approach into dealing with the problem.
Right. The Ghanaian Times newspaper now, COVID-19 nationwide vaccination. Government launches 5-day campaign, and that is slated for tomorrow, the 2nd, all the way till the 6th, that is in this month. And it targets vaccinating some 2.5 million people, and that is a push for herd immunity. There's also the Ghana Health Service administering 10 million COVID-19 vaccine doses nationwide. And don't charge subscribers for SIM registration, Telecommunications Chamber says. I guess in Ghana, we take advantage of every situation. Now we're hearing that people are, like I saw this story where, I don't know whether it was the UK or the US, and some nurses had made about $1.5 million from giving out fake vaccination cards. Well, here too, guess what? People are charging people to get SIM card re-registration, when in fact, It shouldn't happen. In fact, coming en route today, I was listening to the BBC, and they were talking about the fact that people were having to pay to cut corners for the Ghana card, for example. So it appears endemic, isn't it? Your take?
Oh, it is endemic. I remember you and I had a conversation around vaccine mandates, and then I said, well, you can mandate it, but what is going to happen is that it's going to create a sub-economy where people are going to be shifting and selling and all kinds of things. But it's a very desperate economy. And once you give people these kinds of, easy layups, they're going to smash it. And that's what we have done in this situation. We've created an artificial deadlines around these issues. We've created an artificial situation which could have been easily remedied by data sharing. And for which reason we've not only lost critical hours and critical productive hours by people who are being asked to, to form unnecessary queues, but desperation sets in and people want to get it easily and quickly. And so people then prey on that vulnerability. And it's unfortunate that time and time again, we put people in these situations where we find ways for their pocket to be picked. I think it's completely intended and artificial in creating the situation we shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Let me just run this story by you. Just one from the Finder newspaper. The rest are basically captured by some other papers as well. But we are fighting corruption with systems, not rhetoric. Guess who's saying that?
Please don't tell me he's any Ghanaian politician.
Well, it is. It's Mr. Vice President, His Excellency, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. He says they are fighting corruption with systems, not rhetoric. The same systems that the latest corruption perception index suggests we should build, the same institutions. How do you react to this? The opposition NDC has taken him on in recent times, posts here, blasts from the past in terms of what he said versus what we are seeing. As a citizen, what's your thinking?
I'm afraid that I'm going to say something that destroys the young man's intentions or eyes of the presidency. So
I don't think whatever you say would achieve that, but I would like you to be as blunt as possible. What is your thinking on this?
Not this is me being blunt, because I do not see it in all honesty how can I have any credible and serious faith. Seems surprising to me for anybody to contemplate that this is in fact what is happening in Ghana.
So in other words, you're not holding your breath. You're taking his words with a pinch of salt.
If I was to hold my breath and wait for this young man to save me, I would be dead. I'd rather not hold my breath.
He is head of the economic management team, and he's telling you that we're fighting corruption, we're building systems, and you don't believe him?
Well, the corruption, like you have talked about, remains one of the biggest drains on public resources and our ability to effectively manage the economy. And so if the economy is in tatters and where it looks like we're heading into a serious financial crisis, their words, not mine, then that tells you a lot about the holistic management of the economy generally. Over 5 billion Ghana cedis has been lost in 1 year, 12 months, by the state-owned enterprises. Nobody is talking about anything. We've not reviewed the causes that led to the loss. Nobody has lost their jobs. Nothing has happened. 5 billion in a year, which is almost approximate to what the government wants to collect in E-levy. So I don't know how seriously we are having that conversations and when the systems are going to kick in. I mean, it's been 30 years of systems and rhetoric. And
Expected robbers nabbed. Czech delegation applauds government. And there's Apiate tragedy. Explosion truck had escort. Whether it did not or did have it, it's been quite a banter that we've had. And this story captured here. Veep courts churches to fight corruption, tied to what we just did. But let's look at the Hawk newspaper.
Wait a second. Is that a system he was talking about? Churches to fight corruption?
I guess it's part of it. Well, the churches can also encourage us to fight corruption, I believe. Anyway. So the Hawk newspaper now, and of the stories there, I'll look at this one. On the back page, Richard, 32, fulfills his Adisco dream after several attempts. Now get this. 32-year-old Richard Oponi Mafo has gained admission into Adisadel College, his dream school, after 5 BECE attempts. I mean, in 2010, he sat the exam, got Samo High School and all of that. So many things, and he's finally landed his dream. Talk of tenacity. and not giving up. He's dealt with shoes and all of that. At 32, he still wants to pursue his dream. I mean, I want that to... I don't know how you'd react to that, especially tied to what we started the conversation with, your post about people wanting to leave the country. And here's someone who's right here who wants to achieve a dream of entering senior high school.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful story. I read it and I was all feeling. I was all in the feelings.
Right.
Particularly because for me as well, at this other college was a dream school. I never got around to choosing it. I was swayed in other directions.
Oh wow!
But it genuinely resonated with me, and it's a school that I have every love for, and I'm happy to see somebody finally get in. I think stories like this, we do not amplify them enough because we are so focused on the rat race of life, of making money, bills, and that you know, we don't understand that our time in life doesn't have to be by anybody's standards or anybody's chronology or anything. People just have to live their dreams, and I'm absolutely happy for the gentleman.
Right, so to wrap the conversation in the next 2 minutes or so, Economy Times, government misses fiscal deficit target. And per this story, the government's fiscal deficit has widened further, recording an end-year deficit of 9.7% of GDP, slightly higher than the target of 9.4% for 2021, so recorded 15.2% and 12.6% of GDP, respectively. Sometimes we don't all get the OPPP and the GDP and the debt and all those things, but the fact is we're not in the best of places economically speaking. Wrapping with the BNFT, a change of guard takes effect at Wassa, and there's value of Momo transactions drop by 3 billion Ghana cedis. That story is on page 3. And it says the value dropped by 3.2 billion in December last year, less than 1 month after Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced the 2022 budget, the impending imposition on an electronic transfer levy. I think it's Uganda. When they implemented this levy at 1%, within just about a few months, it was so bad they had lost a quarter of Momo transactions, and they had to quickly peg it down to 0.5%. What do you see happening should the E-levy pass through? That's my final bit to you, Oliver.
I think that the government tells us that they also anticipate these astronomical drops, people's resilience in wanting to protect their revenue from theft. And so perhaps when their calculations are wrong and Ghanaians out of desperation do not return back into the money apps, that they might revise course or change course. But I think the biggest hope for me is that we do not even get there, that the theft is defeated in the People's Parliament, that we don't have to go through the painful experience of a slowdown economy and economic transactions that we need for this country.
Oliver, are you suggesting that the majority caucus in Parliament is trying to foist theft on the people of Ghana? Is that what you're suggesting? Because the majority caucus wants the E-levy.
I think we even operate a constitutional framework that encourages theft of the political class against the people. So theft is inwritten into the fabric of governance in this country, but particularly pocket and taking your money away with no just cause. And yes, I don't think a lot of them are reflective enough of their role as accomplices in encouraging naked theft of Ghanaians.
Finally, I know I've said this, but a thought just came to mind briefly. They have stipulated that the finance minister has said that we'll use the E-levy when we get it for road infrastructure, for different things. They have apportioned, and they have even apportioned percentages and all of that. Do you have faith that should the E-levy go through, they will actually come through with those things that they've apportioned the finances for?
No, I do not. I think that what is more likely going to happen is that they are going to collateralize the levy and borrow against it. And once they do, we'll be stuck in a perpetual situation where the levy never goes. We have the same situation with ESLA now, which is the energy sector levy, which now has also been used to raise a bond. And so we have to, they're going to go to the money market and borrow against it and use it for other ends. I mean, there's nothing guaranteed. There's no legislative framework that is put in place that binds them to use it for a particular or one other purpose. In fact, we have created the petroleum stabilization levy. We have created the petroleum fund, even for instance, and the heritage fund, where politicians are talking of dipping their hands into it and using it for other purposes, even where there's legislation saying that they shouldn't do that. So I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Oliver, do you have a blissful day? Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Always a pleasure having you. And that's how we wrap it up this morning on the news review. But coming up next, we have a lot more in the sporting terrain that we're bringing your way on the AM show. After that, we hit our big stories. You don't want to miss them. It's going to be all about Parliament, the E-levy, and more. Stay. We'll be right back. So we go back to that all-important issue of the E-levy, and we've had extensive discussions on it. Yesterday, we gave you a breakdown of what to expect should it, come into force on or from different angles. But it still hasn't still happened. Will the minority let this go? So far, they have said no. It's an ironclad no. They are not going to let this E-levy pass. The majority caucus is saying this is the way to go. Ken Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance, has said that at least they are willing to bring it down from 1.75% to 1.5%. In our sub-region, there are so many examples we can actually use. But all of those examples are pegged below what... Today, we're going to hear from the very people who are going to be deliberating on this, the members of Parliament. And we'll also hear from an expert on parliamentary affairs. Now, joining us for this conversation, even as we talk about a hung Parliament and whether it's been a blessing or a curse, we have Dr. Stephen Amwa. We all call him Sticker. He is MP for Nshia. So, Sticker, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, bro.
It's always a pleasure having you.
It's always a big pleasure being here because your platform is quite, yes.
Anyway.
That is my view.
And we're reaching beyond Africa or even into beyond Ghana. But let's look at someone else who'll be joining the conversation, Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka. He is with Odikro. Now, he will bring us expert views of the House of Parliament, how far we've come, what he's seen, and what we can expect moving forward on the E-levy and, of course, on this hung Parliament that we have. Both of them join the conversation. To you that the big stories are on the AM show, do that now. Share the word or spread the word. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining. Okay, so we'll have Prof join us shortly. But let me start with you, Dr. Amwa. This E-levy thing, look, let's be very frank. I listened to you on Newsfile over the weekend and all of that. Are you certain you can...
Our viewers this very morning. You can see my face, I'm very tired.
I know.
So forgive me the stress. Is it?
And thank you, regardless of the stress, thank you for coming. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. I can't afford not to come to this table. I think your question is extremely legitimate. Okay. However, I think we should rather concentrate on whether it is something we need or not in terms of our fiscal space. This is where I want experts to discuss thoroughly with detailed alternatives if they have, or detailed support for this. Because if I speak, if NDC brother speaks, they all look like it's politics. Even if you speak the truth professionally, they will say it's politics. And even other people will insult you, whether it's NDC or MPP. So I'm expecting the experts to come out to say that in the area of health, education, social intervention, the accumulated debt service, how is going to be managed in terms of interest payments. Then we have these facts with correct data points. This is all my problem. It's not anything. This is all. Pushing it, the majority will go all out to push it. Minority may, because they are human beings, they may change their minds, go all out to impose it. The only thing that I find quite ironical is the fact that the minority brothers are of the view that if we pass this bill, we are going to be unpopular and lose 2024 elections.
Right.
And now they are pushing it not to be passed. Doesn't mean they want MPP to continue. I think from them and from us, it's all about politics. Because if something is not good for your opponent, a competitor within an industry, and you think that will give you competitive edge, why do you take a position that would rather give the other person competitive.
Let's take both of you. Let's take both of you out of the picture, both the MPP and the NDC, and see whether the NDC could be, even if you want to say, playing to the gallery, right? Because it's the same people who are going to vote in 2024. And they are saying the people are opposed to it. Look, we've had surveys here conducted on social media and beyond. We've spoken to people in Kumasi and all of that, where 9 out of 10 people are saying, finish. On social media, most of the engagements I have had have not been very positive towards the E-levy. So wouldn't you say then that, I mean, maybe they are, even if you want to say playing to the gallery, and even if you take the two of you out of the picture, are you looking at the ordinary Ghanaian rather than focusing on, oh, the opposition is resisting us, it is politics?
In the first place, let's be honest with ourselves. Where in our country, which historical records illustrate the fact or otherwise that Ghanaians willingly, happily want to pay tax? So it's something that you don't have to even concentrate your energies on. You don't want to, I don't want, naturally even paying your own child school fees.
Right.
I mean, so this is not anything that you can sit there and say Ghanaians want or not. Because naturally, instinctively,
people will resist.
Exactly. So
why don't you think if
it depends on the communication that we took for granted. Because in our history, between 2014 and 2016, and the NDC, they passed about 26, they increased or imposed together about 26 taxes.
But the NDC has contested you vigorously.
No, but it's in the budget.
About some 26.
Well, so
and you keep pointing to the budget, and they are saying that is not factual.
So why won't you go into the budget? So it's in the hand side.
Right.
It's in the budget. So I can't lie. 2017, MPP government either reduced or entirely extracted about 16 tax components. And later on, they added about 6.
Right.
What I'm saying is that the whole tax policy management is calibrative, depending on what is happening. And nobody wants to pay tax. And normally when these things are done, they don't do any consultations. But I'm sure this time we should have really done proper consultation, engage stakeholders. Once people are fed into believing otherwise, it becomes what we are having today. But boss, let me ask you, do we need a revenue generation today? The effective tax rate of this country, whether under NDC, MPP, whether COVID or not, has been negative.
I have read documents. I mean, the finance minister has said that it's just about 8.2% of us who are, those in the public service also, who are actually footing the bill of the entire country. People
whether that is factual
incomes
or not,
are being taxed.
What I'm saying is the effective tax rate is when you subtract money spent, transferred. I mean, you divide that among the households in Ghana, and you subtract that from our taxes over total revenue. It's been negative. What it means is that naturally, this country always likely to run deficits, which is not good for us.
Right.
2, even within the sub-Saharan Africa, this country is ranked one of the weakest countries in terms of tax we generate within the developing economies, and even over 30. Or slightly below 30 within the developed economies, we are around 11%. So all these factors are not good for us. And now we have a situation where our GDP has been sluggish, not because of Akufo-Addo's poor leadership. Because, markets have been so sluggish because of this disease, even to the extent that at a point in time, we had to stay home. Let me also flow small, then come in. Boss, have you forgotten the private sector had to sack over 40,000 Ghanaians?
Right.
All the payees government were supposed to collect, we could not again.
Right.
Corporate taxes went down badly. 2020, we had over 11 billion shortfalls. And government still had to perform obligations. So government resorted to all the advice that no, the way we are borrowing against our GDP growth is dangerous, which is a fact.
Right.
So we should find a way of consolidating our fiscal space using revenue generation. People can argue that, the alternative chosen by the government is not the best. We can do A, B, we can do that. For now, this is government option.
Okay.
And we are saying that we should widen the tax net.
Right.
And now we are saying that, you cannot. You are taxing this. You are doing that. I am asking you and all Ghanaians now, in terms of knowledge and everything.
You're saying nobody can offer alternatives?
Offer alternative other than finding a way of getting immediate revenue generation model that will solve the immediate needs of this country.
Okay,
we can plan
before we get into the alternatives.
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. But before we get into the alternatives, because certain things have been proposed, sometimes
proposed,
not just
are they backed?
We shall get into them
properly researched data points.
We shall specify
factual, and
you can tell me what your take is on them.
Okay,
but I just had to pull you back a bit. Yeah. You've just, the fiscal deficit for 2021, we missed our fiscal deficit. We had the Bloomberg assessment. We've had the ratings and all of that. But is it that every problem we have, economically speaking, can be tied down? No, I'm just asking. Because you made a point that, always the rhetoric is on the back of COVID-19. And this is a question that people put out there, that is everything on the back of
it's a propaganda question. Do you know why?
Tell us.
I have not listed everything say COVID. The explanation I gave, nobody, honestly speaking, as a professional person, will argue about this. Right. All that I'm saying is that if you look at almost all the economic indicators that the Akufo-Addo government took over, about 90%, they are better than we took over. Check all of them.
Argument you've made time without number, but let's focus on COVID. So I want to find out.
So I'm explaining why it's not everything, but what we are saying fit the situation. What we are saying is that our major problem now is our debt to GDP, that we all know. GDP
and that was already a problem before COVID.
Yeah, but not as this. Not as this. Even our GDP average was growing around 6.9 before COVID. It's a fact.
Let me ask you, what was our debt? Our debt.
I want to tell you why we can associate this with COVID. You allow me to give the answer.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that GDP that has not been growing. GDP is the main function of productivity,
right?
And maybe labor force in terms of size and then in terms of skill. And then we have a situation where markets were sluggish, not because of the government. Is this not a fact? Even at a point we're asked to say, so GDP was not growing.
But you're not unique in that situation.
Yes, but we are having it done. You go to UK now. Interest rate jumping from 0.5 to about 0.15. Inflation rate quadrupled. So no, it's a fourfold, which is about 400% from what is their tax? What is their revenue generation as a percentage of their GDP? It's almost 40%. Go and check. So we have different situations. And even under COVID, the freebies we were giving and other things. Were they giving freebies? Were they giving, what is the size of the economy? So what I'm saying is that if somebody is saying that our GDP,
don't think that freebies. Why did we go dispensing?
I'm not saying we did not have capacity.
If it wasn't a necessity, did we have to do this? Because
you make a comparative statement. No,
I'm saying if.
But I never said that. Don't change the narrative. You were asking what UK's situation against Ghana. And I'm saying that probably we give output different from what they did.
Decided to do so. When you look at your situation.
No, maybe to them it was not. We are a developing economy. People are very poor. It is a fact.
Okay.
People are very, very poor. Maybe they had more reserve than us. They have bigger economy than us. But what I'm saying is that all the issues with GDP and debt, nobody can take out the fact that in terms of remarkable, to blame COVID. That is, to me, just propaganda to build scenarios to rubbish what we are doing. But what I'm saying is that, is there not a necessity to generate revenue now? So we should go on borrowing again? No.
No one wants us to borrow, but fiscal discipline would ensure that we don't get into certain arenas. But let's look at this. It's a question that I have these last 2 years. Is there any statistic? Is there, from government's end or from the Ghana Statistical Service? Nothing I've seen. But since we have this discussion from time to time about COVID and its impact, maybe we cannot say that it's the sole indicator that has resulted in some of what we are seeing in terms of our economy. But can we quantify? Then maybe we can play the game of, so this has been the impact of COVID on the economy. This is how much it has cost us. Do you think we need something like that?
Yeah, to me, I think it's a very good point you've raised. The developed economies, they do far better than us.
Right.
Your statement, I think if anybody is listening to you, especially the stakeholder groups such as Finance Ministry, even Bank of Ghana, Statistical Services, and all those groups should be able to do what you're talking about.
I mean, you have Hurricane Katrina in the U.S., and they're able to tell you that it costs the economy this number of billions.
What they are saying, it's one of the most sensible issues that we should raise as a country. And this is what we don't do all the time. And since when they're in DCMP, we don't do them well. And this is why we have problems. Because if you can't measure, how can you manage?
Right.
How can you increase? So what they are saying, I think it should be putting pressure on us as government today and other stakeholder bodies to do this work. But even when we haven't done that, nobody can take away the fact that market and industry, and that will make debt to GDP very high. It is a fact. And where we've gotten to, we need revenue. And they are saying, you see, when you are taking taxes, unless you don't manage it well, but if you manage the process well, it's rather better than for even the poor people you are talking about.
Right.
Because taxes are collected, then out of the proceeds, we rather establish and develop satisfactions and utility to create equitability in the system and help everybody along the social stratification. This is what we are supposed to do as a government. I am rather looking forward to Ghanaians pushing this government that this time, hey, we know it's hard. We know already we have sour throat, but we need quinine, who will give us better health tomorrow. But we don't want a situation where the quinine is 1 cedi, we say 100 cedis. We don't want a situation where we'll not go and buy genuine quinine. I'm talking about how the process will be used. But for now, I'm only begging Ghanaians that yes, we understand the situation, but should we leave it like that for Ghana to be destroyed perpetually, or we should take this hard decision now so that we can change and all taxes. Let's be honest. All that is my position now. The only thing is that the opposition members had been very successful in pulling some of the stakeholders along, and already people have formed prejudicial positions. But I think now, you think NDC, they are smart people, don't joke with them. If they think this is not going to help Ghana, for Ghana government to probably restore its goodwill, dwindling goodwill, then this would have supported this quickly because they know we are going to lose elections. Right. But they know that we can generate something to look. Somebody also gave this alternative. No statistical figures, but I love it so much. He said that why shouldn't the government restore toll booth, which the people are already used to, quantify that amount, reduce and do the proportions, and reduce even the 1.5 again.
Right.
Which is perfect.
Right.
This is what I'm expecting. But if experts, this guy is not expert, he's not even educated like you and me. But if experts are working on that, they should do that with figures. Just as you're asking.
Of course, technically, you can't just put it out there. You must back it with figures and what the ultimate outcome is. On hindsight, yeah. Do you feel you goofed with this whole bit about the tolls and taking them off? They were contributing about, from what I hear, about 200,000 to Akiti per day. And I also know that, of course, people will talk about the cost of even collecting the funds as well, which was amounting to many tens of millions per year. That we could have addressed.
Do you know why I can't say we goofed or not?
Why?
I can't say that because, one, I don't know, as you said, the financial economic analysis they did. I'm a financial economist. I would have sat down, calculate, do figures with it, and find the pros and the cons. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
I would have done that so that those figures can let me say that they goofed or not. But whether we goofed or not, decisions are always reviewed, either upwards or downwards. And I think if maybe the good suggestion somebody gave, a young man who's not probably, I'm not saying he's illiterate, but maybe he's not even a finance person or maybe like you or me, it's nice if government could put figures to it and say that, okay, we want to restore the road toll, the structures are there, people were made redundant, want to put them back, and then calculate that amount. That will enable us reduce maybe the 1.5 figure to maybe 1.2 to make up the figure, the values or the proceeds we are anticipating. I'm sure it's good, but whether they goofed or not, I cannot, because I'm not part of the cabinet. I'm not in finance.
Looking at it broadly, what this person says, is it something you would subscribe to? I mean, not getting into...
No, personally, if I have the discretion or exclusive right, I think it's the best thing. You see,
So reinitiate the levies, bring them back. We're raking in something from there, lower the E-levy.
So that the expected generation or whatever will get.
Or the deficit. So what the tolls will bring you, You take that out of the 6.9 billion or so that you are expecting.
Yes,
and then the rest,
rate
you
down.
add the percentage to E-levy.
It's perfect.
Right.
2, most of the suggestions made by experts, I agree, but my point is they should go further, because if you say we should reduce 1%, you should be able to give us detailed work to show that 1% will give us $1 billion.
Right.
Considering Ghana's obligation in the area of health, education, social intervention, all this, we need about 1.2. That would mean that we have been able to manage our fiscal space by raising 80% of our needs.
Right.
Maybe 20% royalties and else can give to, maybe if you want to borrow, your rate will go down. This is what I'm expecting from our experts, which we haven't done. Just like now we can't put figure. Maybe they have the figure, but I don't know, you don't know.
Right.
That the figure that,
which then becomes problematic, because
I should have known.
Even
I'm
as
a finance committee.
Yes, but I'm saying that even as government, in pushing an E-levy and all of that, imagine if you had the figures. You would be able to say, this is
maybe
what
done.
Impact COVID has had on our economy. Let's say 50 billion cedis. Let's just say.
Maybe they've done. I'm sure
on the back of that, that is why you are seeing these pockets of deficits in our economy and this and that.
Maybe they've done.
And so this is the justice. I mean, I feel people would respond better.
But what you are saying is splendid. It's perfect. But I'll find out, maybe they've done. Maybe they've done. Maybe they've not done. But what you are saying is, if you have found that this has been the problem of this country over 40 years now, I find this to be a problem not only with the MPP or even NDC, but even our private sector actors. Even our private sector actors that normally doing comprehensive work on such policies with facts and figures, real figures that we could base our projections and our hopes and anticipations on. Normally we have problems with that, which we need to do. And I think if the policy makers in this regard, those who have the discretion to do this, if they've done, maybe we have forgotten, or at our blind side, they should come clear. If not, they should quickly work on some figures. Let us know. Based on these figures, if it will help us going forward. Right. Because without the figures, some of our decisions might be as a result of arbitrariness. You understand what I'm saying? So your concern is so perfect. And the experts,
right?
Okay, to do more work on their proposals, and let's see the figures. We can still pass the E-levy. If the figures and other things are okay, we can still replace that with a comprehensive program going forward as a country. Right. But I think in the short term, the immediacy of this whole tax, we cannot heap scorn on and joke with, because we are a country being run by fiscal space which is congested.
Okay.
And mostly or remarkably because our productivity, our labor force size from the private sector, our industry operations were impaired by this COVID, and it is a fact. Government made a lot of outlays, our economic stability, and put it on the trajectory of growth.
Thank you, Doc. Let me bring in Al-Hassan Sujini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Al-Hassan, thank you for joining the conversation.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much, and my sincere apologies for coming in late. It was due to circumstances beyond my control. And good morning to Doc.
It happens, but thank you for showing up all the same. We're grateful. We've had quite an fiery engagement at a point on the bit of the E-levy and all of that. But I would just like to source a few lines that experts, analysts in taxation have said, and I'm sourcing from a document put together by Dr. Ali Nachia. We all know him, tax expert in this country. 2 quotes.
Former lecturer.
My former lecturer too, interestingly. 2 quotes. The first one, no government can exist. Grand art consists of levying so as not to oppress. So we can't exist without it, but levying so as not to oppress. The second one is by Northcote Parkinson, and the first was by Frederick the Great, 18th century Prussian king. The second one is, there are limits to the collection of revenue, and that evils multiply when these limits are ignored. However, the tendency to cross these limits appears to be universal, eternal, and all but irresistible. That is by Northcote Parkinson. That they will go ahead with this, whether you like it or not, at 1.5%, as we've now seen them reduce it to. And your stance that you don't want an E-levy. Are you doing us any good as a people, as a country?
Well, let me once again say good morning to the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. The NDC minority group in Parliament is not, an unreasonable group. We appreciate the fact that government needs money, it needs revenue to carry out the developments that we all want in our various constituencies. And that is why, even though we had a hung parliament after the 2020 general elections, we have, in most cases, collaborated with this government to carry out the responsibility of governance, and to enter in cases when we have reservations. We have raised those reservations, but still supported because of the greater good. And so we cannot be seen to be against taxation, as we all know that we cannot live without taxation as a people. Especially as social democrats, we can't be against taxation. We believe in taxing, especially the haves, so that you can create an equitable, society.
For the have-nots.
For the have-nots as well. So when it comes to our opposition against this E-levy, we are simply, reflecting the times that we are in and representing the people who put us, in the privileged positions that we find ourselves. And maximizing their voices and taking decisions that we think will be in their best interest. Look, this government, for example, will tell you that what we are faced with is not as a result of their mismanagement. But clearly, I did hear you ask a question about how the UK managed COVID and how we are managing COVID. Time is showing if that was, a proper management or mismanagement that has led us to where we are. And when they say we should all contribute, the question you ask yourself is, did we all contribute to the mismanagement that has brought us to this point? Did we all engage?
But at any point in time, we're going to have people at the helm of affairs. We can't all govern at the same time.
That's true.
Not like the Greek polis and how they started.
I understand. But what I'm saying is that is why we elect some people and we expect that they will know better. And so if they have messed up and we are faced with a challenge, we expect them, because of the privileges that they continue to enjoy, to come up with better ways of lessening our burden, and not the economy that they manage, and not the economy that individuals manage in their homes. We all have economies that we manage. Your economy is limited to your income and how you spend your expenditure on your family and on yourself. That is the economy you manage. COVID affected that also. Some people were laid off work. Some people had to go reduce the times that they work, and salaries had to be affected. But in the midst of all of that, expenditure has been rising. And since we started this recovery program, look, they have slapped a number of taxes that we have taken as a people. The COVID tax, the sanitation tax, and all the taxes, you name them, in the name of, bringing the economy back to life. We, even though also affected by COVID, still endured these taxes. And so when we say this is becoming too much, it is time for them to listen to us. And look, when you even look at COVID, the bank gave Ghana $100 million. The stabilization levy, the stabilization fund that they inherited, which was set up by the previous government, 100 million, US dollars. $2 billion from IMF, $100 million from the World Bank. The stabilization fund they inherited, they took 250 million Ghana cedis from it. The European Union gave Ghana 85.6 million euros.
The COVID scourge. These are all things that were meant to shore up economies and help in this or that way. So was that really a boon? It wasn't a boon, it wasn't a benefit, was it?
It was a benefit because, you see, if they did not have all of that, then they wouldn't have been able to manage the economy at the time. They needed all of that to manage the economy. And we are saying that if perhaps they had put these revenues that they got as a result of the COVID, they wouldn't have been, look, today what are they chasing? Just 6 billion.
Right.
If they got 20 billion, if they borrow...
But every year has its own conditionalities. And but let me just ask you this. Sticker and Dr. Amwa was making the point that you on the minority side, you're just being hypocritical. You're playing the political game. And it is this. You feel that the E-levy is going to do them in terms of their fortunes in 2024. So why not let them go ahead? Why are you kicking against it? You have some diabolical intentions, and that is why you are doing all of this, just to ensure that they become unpopular because elections are around the corner. He says he doesn't have too much of a problem with it because it is politics, but you're being diabolical. Is that what you're doing?
I think he's speaking the New Patriotic Party, because clearly the NDC, I believe, in the position that we find ourselves today, if the NPP were in that position, please.
Let him
I said they are being
hypocritical. Oh, no. I was using that as my word, that basically you are not being honest. You are not living above the.
You see, if the NPP had the opportunity that the NDC have today, where the ruling party just has a majority of one because of the decision of the independent candidate, independent parliamentarian to caucus with them.
Right.
You have been in this country long enough to have guessed what could have happened. I am very confident that even the formation of a government, you recall, they did not have these numbers in 20, they boycotted that. They boycotted the vetting of ministers. So I'm saying that if they had the opportunity that the NDC is having today by way of numbers in parliament, even the formation of government for the NDC would have been, a problem. Look, we have told them that what do you want to achieve? Let's sit and discuss how to go about it. You want 6.7, 6.8 billion? Not opposition that wants to just take advantage.
People have said we don't want an E-levy at all.
So that is the question we have asked them.
So basically,
the E-levy
alternative.
Exactly. The E-levy is to raise 6.8 billion. We are saying that if we sit around the table and discuss, we can help you raise the 6.8 billion without necessarily taxing the people. And let's, for example, propose the cutting down of expenditure, the government machinery. You and I, over the years, have complained about how much is allocated to the government machinery. We believe that cuts can be done there so that at least the luxurious, renting of private jets can be contained. We have, for example, talked about tax waivers that you bring to Parliament every time. In fact, you propose to pass a bill that will ensure that government did not grant those tax waivers. But you can't bring that bill because you are always interested in 1F. So we are saying that come around the table. There are ways through which we can help you, get the revenue of 6.7 billion without taxing
we'll get into that shortly.
Unless your focus is just to burden the people by taxing them.
We'll get into that.
So that is not an opposition that just wants to take advantage of your inability to raise the 6.7 billion. We are saying there are other ways.
We also announced that I've been joined by Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, Senior Research Fellow with Odikro. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, Benjamin.
It's a pleasure. I'll be coming to you shortly, so just hold your horses because there are a few things I'd like to run by you. Some interesting messages coming through on social media, on Facebook to be specific. Wisdom Rockefeller says the E-levy will determine the future of the NDC in 2024. I don't know what you think about that, but hold your horses. This one says, let's all be prudent about this E-levy. This bill has nothing to do with employment or road infrastructure. This is just a deliberate. This one says, Akanvai Joseph, and I'll have you respond to this. Honorable Suini is confusing himself and everybody. He said the COVID-19 pandemic did not affect the country's economy alone, but it also affected the individual economy. Can he reconcile the individual economy and the country's economy? Would you like to take that quickly before we get into the banter about the alternatives? Very quickly.
Well, maybe...
Look, I'll come to you.
He is a bit confused. I am clear in my mind that COVID affected the individual's economy. That is, the income you make and the expenditure you make was affected.
Right.
And I talked about how people lost jobs, how people had to take salaries affected. Should be sensitive when they are piling all the burden on the individual who also had his economy affected. So, for example, we pay more for fuel now. We pay more for utility now. We pay more for school fees in most cases. But our ability to earn was affected as a result of COVID. We also have endured the COVID levy that they brought, the sanitation levy, all the other levies they brought. We are paying all of that, despite the fact that our incomes are affected by COVID as well. So we are saying that in that, context, the government must be sensitive to the individual and not to assume that, oh, their books are not.
Respond. Hold it. I know. But you also get your ample time.
Yes, sir.
So in a minute, what are the alternatives that we can use to sidestep or circumvent the E-levy and still rake in the sort of revenue that we need to shore up our budget?
One, we have told them that we can sit around the table and discuss the fees.
Right.
The fees, for example, that telecoms charge.
So the service fees?
The service fees. So that
the 1%
we can look at the service fees. But we are against the transactional, the levy being on the transactions.
Right.
But we can look at the fees. We have made that proposal.
Which other countries have done?
Which other nation that just doesn't want government to get the money it needs to develop? That's an opposition that is thinking and saying that let's look at the fees. Two, we have also said that let's look at your expenditure this year. Let's sit down and look at the expenditure. Let's take a comb and, comb through your expenditure and help you make cuts that we believe will not affect the running of the economy.
They are cutting by 20%.
That is not reasonable. I mean, if it's
not reasonable,
it is not. I mean,
why?
The fact that the finance minister announces a cut does not mean that there is going to be a cut. Exactly. So that we look at so that he comes with maybe a mid-year review or something and tell us, I'm making cuts here. Now, if they say they are making a cut, we don't know where the cuts are going to be. Is it going to be, in the area of education, in the area of health? Let us know, because it is through that we will even know if those cuts are reasonable cuts or not, and if it will impact positively or negatively. So we are saying, let us look at your expenditure and help you make cuts that will not affect the economy. And then we have also said, let's look at the issue of tax waivers, that you bring the bill that you said you were going to bring to ensure that we did not grant these tax levies to companies, tax waivers to companies that did not deserve it. Let us look at it and help you in those areas. I believe that if you look at the amount of taxes that we waive for companies, some who don't even deserve it, we can make a lot of savings. Sometimes local companies. Mostly foreign companies, yes, but sometimes local companies. If we look into that, we can make a lot of money from that for you to run
let me bring
your economy.
Doc in now. And I also want you to respond from this angle. Zoe Jr. sends us on Facebook. He says, this government is not thinking in certain directions. Neither do they have the interests of Ghanaians at heart. Is the E-levy the only source of finance? Answer that in the context of the alternatives that have been given.
Thank you very much. I don't think this government has said E-levy is the only source of financing.
Right.
And even E-levy cannot solve our problems. But if a government thinks of Ghanaians or not, in nature, in terms of ideology, we have implemented pro-poor policies than any fraternity, at least far better than the strongest opposition today, which is a fact in the area of health, in the area of education, in other areas. In fact, kind and cash. National health insurance, that one we're passing, our brothers even went away. They left parliament. We implement FQ. That was in our constitution since 92. They were in power for 8 years. We implement all these free SHS and all of them. So how can you say this government is not having the country at heart? I have with me here today, government reduced taxes or took away entirely about 16 companies in 2017. So if it is tax imposition, reduction, or increment, we even have shown faith with the people. But boss, my brother here is just doing politics. That we mismanage this economy. They were not part of it. I beg you. Please go and find all the performance parameters of any economy in Ghana. What a Akufo-Addo government took over. That one we don't want to do.
So it's a shared mismanagement?
No, we have not mismanaged this economy. You can pick one parameter which is giving us trouble now.
Right.
But about 90% of all the rest, those we took over, we are better. In fact, government interest rate by NDC government is higher than today's lending rate. The banks are just there, go and find out. So these are all propaganda tools and things they want to use. And let me tell you something. All the alternative he's talking about, you raise this important question to us. can they put figures to it or to them? All the things we can do this, we can do that. Look, they left GDP growth of about 3.2%. That's what they left for MPP government. There was no COVID. That actually affected our days about 12. Reserve lower than today in terms of import cover. So what are they exactly talking about? If not anything at all, this government has shown faith with the people as a developing economy and, remarkably poor people in our society. Having a larger number at the bottom of the social stratification because we have been able to offer at least, whether it being efficient or not, opportunity for these pre-SHS, over 100,000 young ones would have been home. What did they offer when they got the opportunity? So what I'm saying is that, look, this expenditure thing, my brother, I'm surprised. I'm not saying he's lying, I wouldn't say that. But all expenditures come to finance committee.
Okay.
NDC guys are there, brothers, MPP guys are there. Almost every expenditure staff goes to various committees that we have NDC, MPP, they are there. So why are you coming to sit here and say that we give us and then we show you how we reduce and all those? No. What I want the NDC to do, I'm not rubbishing what they are saying, is we have done our work. This is our document, even if not to the public, that if you look at obligations of this government, of this country today, in the area of education, this we put together, this is how much. If we use this alternative, these are the figures. I'm sure the government would have even taken it and used. But you cannot give general issues other people are giving. So the point I'm making is that our NDC brothers should know, because they understand. They are not daft. That's why I'm saying that sometimes it's just politics. They should understand the fact that if they mean well for this country, they should help MPP government to pass this bill, because there is an...
You guys on the E-levy, so we can transition to other matters, the hung parliament and what it is doing, and the speaker's absence as well. But let me bring in Prof.
And sorry, before Prof, I beg.
Right.
This issue about
I thought that
we waive taxes and we use friends and cronies. I beg taxes for only who are friends and cronies. Is he not my friend? Is he not my friend? What are they talking? These are all propaganda issues.
Point made. Prof, so we have, so to speak, the politicians from both sides in the studio, and maybe some would expect that, yes, they would toe the lines they are towing. But I say candid take on this E-levy as it is now. What do you think about it?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. What I would say is that there's a lot of confusion around the whole argument. And I'll take it from peace. If you look at what happened to VAT, the introduction of VAT, the introduction of the NHIS, and then what we are in right now, it should tell you that most of the time, opposition MPs will fight against the introduction of taxes. So we should understand it. You want to show that you love the people more than your opponent. You are interested in developing the country more than your opponent and all that kind of thing. So for me, this is where we have to look at it from. I said there's a little bit of confusion because, for example, I have listened to economists, professors, profound ones, much about people objecting to the introduction of the E-levy. But it looks to me that it's more about the figures. That's the percentages. So some people think that the percentage has to come down from, say, 1.75 to about 1% or 1% plus something. So that the position of the minority MPs or the NDC MPs or the opposition MPs. In one breath, we are against it. In another breath, we want to see the percentage reduced. That's not true. For example,
they have said, just to clarify, Prof, they have said, and of course there was that engagement with the minority leader and some telcos where supposedly he mentioned 0.5 to 1%. They have clarified that that was the minority stance, no E-levy, and that's what they're standing by. Just to clarify for you.
Well, you see, when at what point in time do you differentiate the position of the leader from the other MPs? That is where it started from. So it's about going forward. when it started, there were positions. Then at a point in time, you have the discussions behind the scenes and all that. So yes, at this point, they can say that, well, that was the minority leader's own position. But I find it very difficult to take that because it becomes very difficult to differentiate between the minority leader's position and that of the opposition. So for me, that is my view. And you know that the NDC as a party led by the General Secretary has also said that, well, it is against between delegate representation and trustee representation. In other words, are the MPs doing what the party is asking them to do, or are the MPs acting on their own accord? And that is where I'll commend somebody like the like Okujeto Ablakwa, the honorable member for, is it Ketu South, who consulted his constituents and came to Parliament or came back and said, well, my constituents are saying A, B, C, D. It's more about trying to find consensus. And this is where I also fault the majority. Right from the word go, the majority had it wrong. In other words, they had the approach wrong right from the word go. And it started from when the speaker was elected. Now, when you have numbers, when you have a hung parliament, of course, let's say that the majority leader says it's not a hung parliament. But a hung parliament simply means that no party has an absolute majority. There's no clear, it is not clear whether a party has a majority or not. So the NDC doesn't have the MPs for the MPP. That is when the independent MP says that I'm going to work with the MPP. So it's obviously a hung parliament. And when you have such a situation, you don't do business as usual. Perhaps my observation is that over the years, because we have always had absolute majority in parliament, whichever party is in power, we have not been able to build that kind of consensus building. We have not developed our negotiation skills to the extent that when we have this kind of situation, it becomes very difficult for somebody to go to one person and say, hey, let's come together and have a chat. Let's discuss this and have a consensus and see how we can go forward and build this. Who has to do that? Among groups, you always have people, even sometimes behind the scenes, who wield that kind of confidence and influence, who can always lead that kind of discussion. So for me, I see a situation where, to a very large extent, the majority side has failed to do what they were supposed to do. Okay. That is, negotiate their way before coming to Parliament to even read the budget statement of the government. I expected the government side, the majority, and even the executive to have engaged with the minority side and discuss things before even reading the budget statement. Okay. You know, and I have listened to the minority people. You know, the day the president read the State of the Nation address, that was 2021, he called for consensus building in the fight against, for example, Galamsey. But after that, I heard the minority chief whip saying that from the time of the election, that was the 7th of December, to the time of the president reading that statement, there had never been any attempt to speak with the minority. He said it several times, even to the point of the election of the Speaker of Parliament. So this is where I fault largely the majority side, that they have failed to do the needful, and that is negotiating their way. If you come to the floor of Parliament and you want this argument, the open argument, we will introduce it, we will pass it, we will not pass it, on whatever, what have you, will not solve the problem. Okay. At the end of the day, they will go back to the, come again, yes, come in.
Just wrap with that comment.
We will come back to the table to negotiate. And the earlier we started that, the better it will be for us. Okay. So that would be my advice to the majority side and to the government.
I am looking at this data here. I want each of you to take a look at this data. And yes, so this is going to be the
because he had all the time.
This is going to be the wrap up. Each one of you. Hold on. I manage the time here, so let me just do that. Let me do my work. I would give you a minute and a half, gentlemen, because we have to talk about our current state, the hung parliament, whether it's being a blessing.
We'll give him 3 bites, even though he had all the time.
I think I've been pretty fair.
But that will give him 3 bites.
He didn't come early. But you should have come early.
You're not showing up timely as
no, but it doesn't mean he should get a 3rd bite.
Let's do this. I want us to look at this data because it gives a certain impression. As of 2019, per the Afrobarometer's research, 72% of Ghanaians were willing to pay more taxes to finance country development from our own resources. 73. Those who preferred to use external loans from the IMF, the World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions, 18% said, no, let's go and borrow and do what we have to. And 10% were sitting on the fence. They neither agreed or disagreed. It gets interesting because when you look at our trajectory, 2011 to 2013, 90% of Ghanaians were willing to pay their taxes to contribute to ensure that our kitty is full and we can develop the country. It has come down to 79%, as I was mentioning. And the question is, if so many Ghanaians are willing to pay taxes, you have something between 90 and 80%, even if it has come lower. Why are we struggling with an E-levy if the people feel this is popular, this one will help us? Maybe you should take it.
That'll be his 4th and my 1.
I'll give you more time. So I'll give you.
No, that'll be his 4th time, and just I'm smoking just one.
I'll give you 2.5 minutes. Why? Very quickly on that.
That's interesting.
I think this is for practical intentions of Ghanaians.
I want you to be very. I want you to be very brief on this one. So just hit the jugular for me.
How can I hear on it? I don't know. I'm not having anything against the research done.
Right.
But I'll be surprised whether if we are introducing any form of any tax, whether even together introduced by NDC and MPP, you get 72% of Kenyans who say, oh, hooray, we are going to pay those taxes.
No, but it's about a willingness to contribute to the state's coffers, to the kitty, to ensure that the country runs.
Kenyans are fully aware that you get even small samples say that happy want to pay. So I'm surprised. I get your point. I'm surprised. I really don't know the sample size. I don't know which segment of the social stratification they interact with. And I can't say it is not good or it is bad. But sometimes Kenyans also think the monies we collect, whether under NDC or MPP, we mismanage them. This also is also one of the reasons.
Right.
They think we mismanage them. And I think to some extent, you can agree with some Ghanaians that they think accountability and transparency to the level they want, they don't get. Not that they are right. And I also have issues with corruption perception because the way we manage perception is insulting you. So those people, their views about issues will be misdirected or be out of arbitrariness. But what I'm trying to say is that if government upon government, successive government, whether NDC, MPP or CPP, would demonstrate enough transparency and accountability, and Ghanaians can also have confidence in the way we use their money productively to benefit the state, honest and preparedness to pay taxes.
Al-Hassan, I'll give you 3 minutes.
Well,
go ahead.
You have given him all the time and the chances. So
these are all communist inferior tactics.
It's true. I mean, he's giving you all the time and the chances.
Your time is ticking.
He's forcing you
so
to
I'll just try to be brief. See, he talked about FQ.
Gosh.
Now, it's clear.
Right.
No, but boss, if he makes such statement,
please. I didn't
no, but you can't say I don't understand.
I didn't interject.
But I think I do think it may be below.
That one exactly. If you do that, I'll come in.
I think.
But you understand FQ.
Why? I don't have the right to.
But you don't have the right. I don't
have the right of talking.
So he says he thinks you don't understand it based on.
I think he's suffering from unconscious incompetence.
I don't mind.
So definitely, then
I think that he doesn't understand it.
You don't. But gentlemen, hold on. Tone down for me. Thank you.
Free, compulsory, universal basic education.
Can you tone it down?
We and the MPP and the COFO, we implemented.
Okay.
It's a matter of fact.
So Sticker, hold your horses, gentlemen. Let's not sling mud at each other. No. We must do this. I'm just saying that let's not get to the point where it gets personal.
Be straightforward.
So
I
go
said
ahead.
I think, and he tries to throw man.
Go ahead with your point.
So don't say we are throwing.
Go ahead with
and I also
point.
think yes.
Now what I'm saying is that the introduction of the 1990s.
It's we did go and check.
Sticker.
But
let him land.
But after we did,
you wouldn't have allowed this. You wouldn't have been happy about it. Let him land.
When he talks about GDP growth, go and read all the predictions of the economic think tanks by November 2016 about how Ghana's economy was going to grow in 2017. The EIUs, all of them predicted.
Seen some of those projections, but you would also understand that projections are what they are. Projections, they don't necessarily pan out that way.
I don't take that away. I'm saying that I don't take the management that they carried out, the management of the investments they carried out, that ensured the growth that we recorded.
Right.
But it is unacceptable to harvest acceptable.
Right.
It is hypocritical, to say the least. So that's the point I seek to make about economic growth. When he says that it was 3.6 and then under 3.6. Look, again, he talks about us not bringing figures when we make the alternatives. Look, the IEA has told us how much we lose from tax waivers, 5 billion Ghana cedis. And when he says that it is not their cronies, how do you grant $24 million, a company owned by your brother, the president's brother-in-law, Pullman, $24 million to come and build hotels? Is that essential?
Proof?
Oh yes, we granted that, Pullman.
But
we granted that in the last time.
That
it's not an allegation.
Owned by the president's brother?
Exactly, yes. It's public knowledge. Pullman is owned. The president's brother-in-law. That's what I said.
Now in-law has.
That's what I said. I didn't say he said brother. I said brother-in-law.
And that person does not
You can understand $1 is more than the E-levy they are chasing. $24 million is more than the E-levy they are chasing. So we are saying if we check all of that, government can make the money that it needs to.
But hold it. That assertion you just made, that 24 million, you said $1 million,
yes,
is more than the E-levy. The E-levy is hoping to rake it. 24 million is not. I mean, you would be looking at something above $1 billion. There.
Well, so thank you for that. But I'm saying that the GIA have also told us, for example, that we are losing $3 billion to corruption a year. To corrupt
$3 billion when it comes to the state-owned enterprise. I thought you would.
Yes, I'm talking about corruption.
The figures are here.
And GII is talking about $3 billion. You are adding, more institutions and the figures that they are bringing. So it tells you how much leakage we have in the system that if plugged, we will not be burdening people with this, Momo tax. Let me help Prof when he came in to understand the position of the minority, because it's a responsible minority, have not shied away from having a conversation with the government. The conversations around how to help the government govern have brought about a number of ideas I mentioned. It doesn't mean that we are saying we are against E-levy, go for tax waivers. Those ideas include the corruption discussion we are having. Those ideas include all the proposals we have put on the table.
Right.
So we have been engaging them. But our position has been clear that can be tolerated by us. But in the conversation, a lot of things come up. So if, as part of the conversation, when they went to the table, the government talked about what if we reduce it, and the minority leaders, as part of the conversation, also says that, well, it is something. It is part of the consideration.
Let me just speak a little bit. I think you've expatiated enough on this matter. It's clear. It's clear.
I think
it's clear now. Else we'll not get into other matters. But I wanted some clarity. I wanted some clarity on this. I'm coming to
coherence.
Your minority chief whip has said that he cannot guarantee that you will not get violent again when it comes to this E-levy. You're going back on the E-levy. Are you going to fight again?
You see,
I mean, if are you going to say that if need be, in quotes, you are going to fight again on the floor of Parliament?
We will not fight.
You must speak. Unfortunately, he spoke to your station, so I thought you would be doing that. Because clearly, what he said was that as a minority, we are not happy. And look, go and watch the videos. You have it on your set. The last fight took place on the side of the minority. The majority, as a minority, we are going to live by the rules of our country. And the 1992 Constitution enjoins us to resist whatever is illegal,
then I have to
with all our might. With all our might. Unless by the dictates of the 1992 Constitution. It says you must resist what is illegal with all your might and whatever you have at your disposal. And you see, Parliament is a master of its own procedures.
Right.
So if it is illegal, it is an illegal conduct, and you allow that illegal conduct to take place, no court is going to overturn it. Yes, we have our procedures and standing orders, but let us remember, when we rejected the budget policy, the next time they came to reinstate the policy, because we did not want those spectacles that Ghanaians condemned to happen, we abstained, thinking it will teach them a lesson not to do an illegality that was so glaring, because they did not have the numbers. Okay. But the processes. We filed a motion, the Speaker rejected the motion, again, an illegality. So they were determined to continue perpetuating those illegalities. So they were not going to even tolerate a motion that will reverse what they did. So in that, context,
right,
what do you do?
Right.
Do you stand by and allow the Constitution to be raped and violated with all your might?
Let me go to
So
Prof.
that is the context within which the majority chief whip said.
Maybe you can save your comments for the tail end of the conversation.
If they do not play by the rules, he cannot guarantee that we will stand by and watch them violate the Constitution.
Point well made.
You beat us again.
Studio,
but somebody is saying that the Constitution is saying that they should beat other people. That's what he implies.
I don't think that is what he is saying. I don't think that is what he is saying.
We will not fight. They should kill all of us.
That's logic.
They should come and kill us.
That is
we will not fight.
No,
you can beat us. It doesn't matter. It's not a place for boxing. It's not. So they say oppressors should use all their might. Please come and kill us. Look, in Parliament,
cognitive whatever was not in the test. I don't think it's not good. We are both honourable members.
Wow, I like the way you take the time to caution me, but not him.
No, I just cautioned him.
I'm impressed with the way you take the time to caution me.
What are you insinuating when I started that what he said about your cognitive whatever was not in good taste?
But when
so
he
also
said
don't
that,
call him ridiculous. Why are you trying to foist on me a certain bias that doesn't exist? Especially when you came late, and I've been very fair to you in terms of time.
Really?
Yes.
I've been fair to me.
Yes, I have.
We all watch it after the program.
Gentlemen, let's be decorous. That is the bottom line.
That is what you should have done in the first place.
All that I'm trying.
That's what you should have.
Where we get to, we should exchange blows.
Right.
What happened at first, to me, is unfortunate. We cannot blame the minority or majority alone. But if anything at all, everybody watched what happened there.
Okay.
Nobody crossed to somebody's side to come and fight when he was sitting there quietly, not moving to work. But what I'm saying is that we from the majority side, we promise, if anything, let's use our intellectual capability and resources to demonstrate to Ghanaians that in-house there, it's about the brain, it's not about the fix. That's what I can say. If they want to beat us, they should beat us. After all, people suffered.
We'll leave it there. I don't want more fireworks on this one. Prof, and I'm very grateful that you've held for us so patiently by my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson. It's having its effects already, whether positive or negative. Professor Jampo says the majority leader's posturing doesn't support collaboration. This hung parliament, has it been a blessing or a curse?
Thank you very much. Before I come there, let me say that, right? Yes. The honourable member for, is it Tamale South or? No.
Tamale North. No. And just a correction, earlier when you were talking about Okujetua Blackwell, he is actually North Tongue.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would advise that perhaps they and publish their stance on the E-levy so that we can all come to terms with it.
But Prof, just to interject, and Al Hassan is drawing your attention to it. They have actually done that.
We have issued a statement to that effect.
Figures and everything.
No, he's saying our
and say they will use.
Well, I won't say either a curse or a blessing, but I'll say that it's a developmental process, and we have to go through some of these things before we develop as a country, as a democracy. As a parliamentary democracy, we have to have several nomenclatures of parliament for us to be able to understand really how Parliament works. So I'm not surprised. If I look at my studies of Parliament, especially the UK Parliament, the oldest Parliament in the whole wide world, these things are bound to happen. It tells us that we should continue to learn, especially, for example, we have 137 excluding the independent MP. Now, the argument has been that if the speaker is not around, then the first deputy speaker chairs, and then the numbers become 137. What do we have to do here? So if you have to vote, it means all kinds of bills will be rejected, frankly. But if you look at the voting rights of the speaker, which people argue also affect the first and second deputy speakers, then perhaps we have to go back and have a second look at that clause, especially that found in the standing orders.
Right.
What can we do about it? To revise the standing orders and make sure that if the first deputy speaker sits in the chair, they can still have some form of vote, either the voting right, the original voting right, or a casting vote. It is not clear, and that is why some of us have suggested that perhaps at a point in time we have to go to the Supreme Court. The deputy speaker, the second deputy speaker, both of them are members of Parliament, and they represent their constituents. And so at a point in time, if you debar them from voting or having a say about a bill, then you are denying their constituents that form of representation that they should have. So it is a learning process, as I said. This is something that we have. The debate has already. Speaker is in Dubai on health grounds. I'm told he'll be back somewhere in March, on the 5th of March or so. So from now up to that point, the first deputy, either the first deputy speaker or the second deputy speaker will have to sit in the chair. Then what happens? When we have something we have to take seriously, we have to think about it seriously and maybe go back and revise or amend that provision either in the Constitution or in the standing orders. I don't know the way to go around that. We can leave that to the lawyers because I'm not a lawyer. But this is my layman's perspective of that provision in the law.
Okay.
So that going forward, if we have to go through this kind of situation again, we know what we have to exactly do. Otherwise, if you get a speaker, who wants to Dubai for medical review and all that?
Right.
But he may be right. It may be a genuine situation, but some people don't understand. So if we are not careful, we will get to situations where people can manipulate the system to their advantage.
Prof, so quickly.
What it means is that we have to go back to the law and make sure that we put the right measures in place so Ghana's parliament can function effectively.
Okay, try to squeeze this into a minute for me, 60 seconds. What do you think the impact is going to be of the speaker's absence, especially at this crucial time where the E-levy is going to be tabled on the floor of Parliament?
The deputy speaker voted some time ago. If they have to go through that situation again, then the E-levy can be passed by 138 to 137 votes. But if the stance is still that he cannot vote, then I'm afraid perhaps it's not going to pass.
With what knowledge you've acquired following parliamentary proceedings, do you think it is apt for him to vote, or you subscribe to those who say he shouldn't vote?
No answer, because of the arguments surrounding that, and a lot of people, even lawyers, don't agree, because the point, as I said earlier, you have the first deputy speaker being an MP, right? And the second deputy speaker is also an MP. Of course, the speaker is not an MP. So when they say the speaker cannot vote, that is very clear. Or commenting on a bill that has been introduced to Parliament. Are you not preventing his constituents from having a say on that bill? So that is a question that we need to ask. And that is why I think that it is something we have to have a second look. As I said, it is my view, and that is my of representation as an MP, then they may have to vote.
Okay.
That may also go against the standing orders of Parliament.
Right.
Or even the Constitution.
Right.
And that is where we need to reconcile the two and make sure that we find a common ground. Sometime later, a lot more things may happen in the future.
Okay.
And these arguments will continue to come. So for me, it is better for us to find a solution once and for all.
Okay.
By either going to the Supreme Court for an interpretation or amending something I said earlier. For me, I am not so much surprised about what is going on in Parliament.
Okay.
Because I've been following parliaments, some parliaments all over the world.
Okay.
When it gets to this stage, it is also political. People are trying to get points, political point scoring. And I believe that if the NPP were in opposition, something like this will still happen.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you. Hold for us for now. I'll come to you as we wrap the conversation in a few minutes to have your take on what your expectations are as we go back to Parliament, how you think developments will, in fact, pan out. But let me come back into the studio quickly on this beat. Now, yesterday on the Pulse, speaking of the matter is that the MPP MPs themselves, they don't think that the E-levy is a good thing. That is why their leadership is not able to get all the 138 members to vote. 138 here, of course, he's adding the Fomena MP because he's part of your caucus. And interestingly, the minority chief whip has said that a powerful king, foisted it on him to join your caucus in Parliament. Is this assertion true? Because look at it. On Friday, all you needed to do, because the Right Honourable Bagmin was still in the seat. He was waiting for you. The minority side, they waited for you for 9 hours plus.
No, he wasn't in the seat.
And you were unable to show to actually see that through. Now, he's no longer available, and we have to go through a scenario that could degenerate into the exchange of fisticuffs and all of that. Is it true what this says? Your members, Nankasano, some of them don't support the E-levy.
You know that is not true.
How would I know?
But you're answering me. So
no, but how would I know?
But that is not true.
So it's a question.
Okay, I agree. Yes, you're right. But that is not true.
It's not true.
It's never true.
Why are you not able to muster the membership to come and vote for your E-levy?
I don't think I particularly can answer this question because I was there. Most of our people were there. My opposition brothers were there.
But some of them, about 4 of your MPs were conspicuously missing.
I can't speak to that, but at least not all the 138 members were there. And why they were not there, I don't know. They are human beings.
Right.
Now we have our speaker outside the country.
No, but stick it. I'm sorry. But in a situation like this where you need every vote counts, you're saying your majority chief whip could not whip people in line?
Not that he could not. He's a very fantastic leader. To me, he's doing so much work. But what I'm saying is that we are human beings. There are uncontrollable factors. Now, where is our main speaker? I don't think our main speaker will travel because of this. I don't think so.
Right.
That's my view. I don't know what is. It's not a view of the majority.
The majority thinks he's playing some games.
I don't know. Majority, I haven't seen anybody saying that.
No, I mean, I'm just writing on. You're saying that is not the thinking of the majority, but you think that
please don't change. I'm saying that what I'm making, the statement I'm making now, it's my individual view. That's what I think.
That's what I'm corroborating.
It doesn't mean I'm right or even wrong.
Okay.
But we all know our speaker is not doing well.
Right.
And because of that, he's outside.
Health-wise,
yes.
One
cannot blame him or say the other. It could be intentional. It could be that truly it is a natural.
Do you suspect it could be intentional?
I don't have any evidence. I can't say that.
Okay.
I can't say because I don't have evidence. I'm only wishing if indeed it is health issue, God should heal him because he's a great person. He's an asset not only to NDC or even MPP, but to this country where he is now. Right. You understand what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to say is that 1 or 2 of our guys who were not there, I really don't know exactly what was going on because asymmetric information. It's not everything you know here about multimedia. Right. There could be pieces of information very relevant, but you are not privy to. However, all that I'm saying is that I'm admonishing the minority brothers and the majority brothers to have this nation at heart.
Okay, just to wrap with you. So do you think, and I'll give Suene enough time before I go back to Prof. So do you think today you can muster the numbers to push this?
I'm praying and hoping so. I'm praying and hoping so. And I think the levy will be passed and Ghanaians will be very happy and thereof.
Okay,
thank you. I know it's not a palatable.
Thank you. Have moles in their camp, and I'm sure vice versa. I mean, it's politics. But do you suspect even within their rank and file, there are people in there who are against the E-levy, who are probably just staying away because this E-levy now, they are not in support of it?
Well, I don't know what General Mosquito knows. What I see is that there's a claim by majority members of the New Patriotic Party in Parliament that they all support the E-levy. And I see mobilization. There's a claim that they all support. I mean, you just heard Dr. Moore here make that same claim.
Have you ever interacted with any of them, friends? I know you're all friends who have suggested in any way that they are not in support of it.
I am not one who goes about disclosing.
I wouldn't ask you to mention the person's.
It doesn't matter. I didn't say. I don't disclose private conversations. Just to all of us that they all support the E-levy. As to why they are unable to mobilize the 138 to vote for it, I am unable to proffer a reason. But I am very convinced that majority of Ghanaians are against the E-levy. I have seen it based on scientific and unscientific polls that have been conducted by people, and to that extent, I am surprised that these NPP members of Parliament are going against the wishes of the people that despite the glaring opposition from their constituents, they are still determined to support this government to impose this draconian, levy on the people of Ghana, the people that they are supposed to be representing. Right. You see, we all during the recess, interacted with our constituents, and I'll be surprised if there was one MP who, in his or her engagement with his MP, to ignore that opposition, in his or her constituency, and still come onto the floor to assist the government implement this policy can only be said to be very, very insensitive. Okay. And I suspect that may perhaps be the reason why some of them are shying away. So that at the end of the day, they can perhaps go back to their constituents and claim that they were not part of the imposition.
Just give me a yes or no answer to this. So will the E-levy pass or will it fail on the floor of Parliament?
That's you're asking the wrong person.
How come?
It's simple. That the minority MPs of 137, whenever the E-levy is tabled, will vote against it.
Okay, thank you. Let me come to Prof. As I take your parting comments in a minute on this very matter. Your expectations as they go toe-to-toe on the floor of Parliament.
Well, thank you very much. I expect that there will be consensus. It will go a long way to help the democracy that we are developing. As I said earlier, for Parliament, opposition and government MPs always struggling over the introduction of taxes and all that is always there. We are going to face that, but at the end of the day, there will be a way out. Let us see the way out. I would advise the MPs that we don't want to see what we saw the last time. The what do you call it? The exchange of blows and what have you. We don't want to see that. Right. It was very disgusting, if I should say. If I'm too strong, I'm sorry, but it wasn't a favorable thing for Ghanaians to see. So for me, I want to see them come together, build consensus. But another thing that
Prof, make this very brief. I'm giving you 15 more seconds, so wrap up.
All right. One other thing that I advise the majority side would be that they should up their game about communicating about the E-levy. How they communicate to the people, the assurance. I think at a point in time, if you go around and ask a number of Ghanaians, They are not too sure. It's a matter of trust. You know, at a point in time, we had a road fund. And the idea was that we were going to use that specifically for the construction of roads. Ghanaians will ask.
Prof, unfortunately, we have to wrap it here. But thank you so much, Prof, for joining the conversation. Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, Senior Research Fellow with Odikro. Let's take some of your social media comments very quickly. Sawari Jacob Laura from, I don't know whether it's Laura you are sending the message from, but you say, President appointed 125 ministers, which all were living a luxurious life with our taxpayers' money, and today he wants to burden poor Ghanaians with an E-levy. Mr. President, ask those former appointees of yours to do susu for you. We don't go pay any E-levy. Hashtag AM show. Okay. Dasar Jr. says, why do we tag anybody who speaks against the E-levy as unpatriotic and doesn't want the country's development? Hashtag AM show. Thank you. Next one. So we have more of your comments coming up. Dasar Jr. Sending that one. Emmanuel says, all of a sudden, the E-levy has become the solution to all our problems as a country. What are they using the taxes for? Tell Stephen Amwa to be civil enough to allow others to make their submissions. Again, with the hashtag AM show. If we have a final one for now, I know there are many more. Prince says, I think the government relaxed on the issues and demands of UTAG. The NLC should withdraw the court suit against UTAG if only they want the strike to be discussed amicably and suspended. Nothing seems to be working perfectly in Ghana now. Well, those are the thoughts you've been sending through. We'll be wrapping in just about a minute as I acknowledge my other guests. But something big is coming your way. The way you listen to multimedia's radio stations is about to change. Are you ready for it? If you're using a smartphone running on Android, just activate your Google Assistant now and get ready to ask multimedia for a whole new experience. To do this, look for the Google app on your phone. It's the multicolored letter G. Open it and press your display photo or initials on the top right. Go to settings, find Hey Google and voice match and open it. That's it. Make sure Hey Google is enabled by tapping on the switch until it turns blue. You may have to record your voice so your Google Assistant can identify you anytime you speak. Now, you're ready to ask multimedia. It's that simple. So just to wrap, there's no minute left. Our time is up.
I want to say this.
So thank you very much, Al-Hassan Suini, Member of Parliament, Tamale North, and Dr. Stephen Amwa, MP in Shire.
Psalm 56:11.
Right.
I'm encouraging my majority brothers with this.
Right.
That in God we trust. We are not afraid of man.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is how we wrap the show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Stay with us at 10 o'clock and at 12, we'll bring you our news bulletins. Have a lovely day.